Yeah, and MC pulls everything together. Like you have to be able to create that flow and kind of like hold the audience's hand and bring them along, right? Don't just assume that they're going to get that. Let's just go ahead and tell them in an engaging way, which is what you did so well.
Hey, everybody.
Let's get into it.
My fledgling little audience and followership. Welcome once again to another installment of Vision to Vibe, which if you haven't been following along, the concept is we talk to creators, typically in the B2B marketing space, who are doing good things, big things to change the way and set the future of how businesses are marketing to other
medium-sized things, not always big things.
Okay, fine. Like modest, but still moderately earth-shaking.
Yes.
Things that show other people you get it, guys. They got vision. They had a vision. They pulled off a vibe. I'm here with my good friend Chad Mann. We've known each other for a couple of years. We worked together at Drift during their heyday. We did some cool stuff together, and I always learn a lot from chatting with and working with Chad because he's done video, folks, of a variety of different stripes. And Chad, that's our lead off into this discussion. You are out in LA right now. You have done video for major brands like show business type stuff. But when I came to know you, you made a very conscious decision to do the hard thing, which is to go in and try to bring a lot of the Hollywood style video ethic and approach and scrappiness into the B2B marketing world, which was not always like video native in terms of their approach for how they use content. Why did you do that, Chad? Why did you decide I'm going to really start trying to help more and more like B2B marketing orgs adopt and use video in their marketing when you know it's a bit of an uphill battle at times to convince them to budget for those types of things, to approach it appropriately, to staff it appropriately, to project manage it and capacity load it? Or like, why did you choose to go after and help B2B with this?
I mean, it has been a challenge. It can be a challenge. I think that's one of the things I like about it, is, coming in and having an impact.
Yeah.
And video is a big thing to chew on. It's a big thing to tackle. I think, as I transitioned more from an entertainment and media world to tech, it started off really just like leveraging my experience in documentary filmmaking and telling stories about characters. Yeah. And that kind of like lent itself nicely to customer films. And that's kind of like really one of my first sort of entrees, that and event coverage into the tech space. And really I just started working with some companies and I really liked the way they worked. I like the way they communicated. I like the way they gave feedback. I like their clarity around projects. So it was really invigorating to work with them. And I just like, this is a great environment that I feel like I can thrive in. And I started to discover that these tech companies had this really big need for video production. Oh yeah. You say vision to vibe, you say bring a vibe. I mean, I think that's one of the things that video can do, like on a brand level, right, is tell that story in a way that's really engaging and really grow a brand. And connect with customers and potential customers out there and tell the story of why this brand might be right for them, why the tool might be right for them. So I really like that aspect of it and just all the different types of video content that I get to work on potentially. Everything from customer education, events, thought leadership, social content, all of it. So it really gives me an opportunity to really spread across and work with everyone in the organization with different goals and how they want to leverage video and try to figure out how to make that work for everybody in the different teams and come together and become a big cohesive effort across the funnel, top to bottom for the company.
Well, let's drill into that because I saw you do exactly what you just described there, that broad like spectrum of different ways to apply video. And thank goodness the folks at Drift had the vision to invest there. And then now where you're at now, Apollo.io, they're leading with like a video strategy across the board like that as well. So that's really exciting. So I thought maybe we'd take people back, like when it comes to like scoping out a corporate video strategy, knowing that there's those different stakeholders you just described. There's lots of people who want to start in this area, or maybe we just need like a really cool video to open up our event. Or you know what, Chad, we just need 20 customer stories this year. All those things have applied. So like where should you ideally start if you could have your druthers? Like, is it brainstorming with the leaders or secretly sort of like writing up your own concept and then pitching it to them? How would you ideally, knowing what you know now, start corporate video strategy, knowing you have all these channels and stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on like the stage of growth or where a company is, like right with their messaging, and do they know what they want to say and what they want to do. I've come into places where they're like, we know what we say, who we are, how we want to say it, and how we want to leverage video, and that'll evolve over time. Other times it's like, hey, we can see obviously that video's super important and impactful, right? We see all the stats around how much video content people are consuming every day, how much of that's moving into impact their influence their business decisions, right? So how are we going to leverage this, tool? I mean, I think from that perspective, I would say like we want to look at it's going to be a limited resource. Video inevitably ends up being a thing that everyone wants to do, but is like a little more challenging, a little more time consuming, a little more expensive sometimes than they kind of originally set out to think it might be. And we're at a point right now where AI can be a tool that we can leverage to kind of help speed things up, but it can't do all of it by any means at all.
That's a good point. We'll
So
talk
that's
about
not,
that.
we're not really quite there yet. So I would probably just talk to leaders about like, hey, setting some realistic goals about what we want to achieve with video and look at it from a funnel perspective again, like, awareness, and then like all the way down to like very specific knowledge base, how to use a tool, very dry stuff, all the way up into like very like you said, vibey stuff. I think bigger vibey stuff there. So I would just be looking at a strategy that way to say like, how much of our time do you want to spend on the top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel? Who's going to be involved to make that happen? What teams do I need to connect with to get the information that I need? And then what I like to do is just develop a strategy on how to execute the biggest, deliver the most for the least amount of money as quickly as possible.
Right. And that's all I was going to say is I imagine when you're in these planning conversations, there's no shortage of hopes and dreams for what everybody wants to do. Like the product marketing team would keep you busy for the whole year if they could. The demand gen team would have you busy doing ads the entire time if they could. Like the events or like the brand team would have you be doing like vibey, big event opening, brand defining, thought-provoking videos as well. So I imagine almost in probably every scenario, Chad, you have people wanting to make way more video than you think you probably have the capacity to do. And the budget that they have is probably, I don't think you're probably ever in a scenario where you've got more than enough budget to work with.
You got to go back to the goals, right? Like hopefully there's like kind of like an OKR, like top level goals, and just figure out like, hey, listen, we have to prioritize. Like it's ruthless prioritization, right? Yeah. I mean, part of this is going to be education. Like people will come to me and be like, we want a video like this. And I'm like, of course you want that video, that Google made with 25 people on it over the course of, 18 weeks to 28 weeks, like, but we don't have that here. We've got 3 people,
right.
And we've got a week and a half. So it's just going to have to be a little different.
Yeah.
But just ruthless prioritization, right? And figuring out like, where are we going to get the most impact? So that's what it is for me, is like prioritizing. And part of that is saying no, right? It's going to have to be saying no. We can't do everything. Or looking at other options, right? Like how do we augment an internal team, right? For maybe like, here's a big moment in time where we need more bandwidth. How do we bring on some extra people to kind of help us out?
Yeah.
That way.
That's one of the questions I asked with you, because I imagine this happens in a lot of the sort of Hollywood level productions that you've worked on in the past, as well as working with the scrappy SaaS teams. Like, how can you tell us about how you do that? When and where and how do you bring on additional talent or capacity around this? And did you learn something from those types of teams, which usually come together like that, scrappily and mercenary style, like for Hollywood, like a bigger production stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like the experience I had previously, I'm working in full-time staff situations, but there's so much freelance work in Hollywood, right? So you're very accustomed to like just coming on for a project and then on to the next and then on to the next and working with different teams. So I kind of like looking at that, I've always augmented capacity by saying, just bringing on, maybe it's an editor to be like, hey, can you just edit these 3 things? This part of it, we're doing our company kickoff, right? And we want to hear from internal teams and we want to hear from customers, and there's all of this production that's going on around that. But I need to keep my other production going on, for all the external stuff that we're going to do. So I'll bring on an editor, for example. Maybe it's an individual or 2 or 3, for that period, just to kind of say, hey, chew through these edits, right? To make sure we can hit both of these things at the same time. But then when we get through that tough time, right, I don't have a full-time employee that we're paying and have on the books, right? I can shed
somebody
that
with all that expectation,
Right. And it's generally things that I haven't been, where I can pass the information to them. I don't have to worry about them like messing up. In other words, like going, and I'm not saying like go build a huge brand thing, you know, it's just
Mhm.
like pretty basic, straightforward editing. I think if I'm going to say like, hey, I want to work with somebody, we need extra capacity. We want to work with somebody that like knows the brand and absorbs it. They have to either stick around and be a long-term contractor and be really invested and learn that, or that might be an agency too, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of their whole thing is like, hey, we know how to plug in, absorb your brand and make sure that we're hitting that. Cause sometimes it's hard to manage, go back with a freelancer and just manage every little detail of like how to execute some of that stuff to make sure that they're on brand.
When we worked together at Drift, I saw you do both. There were scenarios where this is a big live event and you would bring in additional staff to help with like the
Mm,
production side of things,
right.
or some of the creative side of things. But then you'd also lean on internal talent or people who knew the brand well, like myself, to be up there and like to be the MC and the ambassador of the message and stuff like that. How do you usually draw the line? And what can you tell other
Mm.
people for like, you could go get an actor in these scenarios. This is good. Or you should use your own people and do your own editing versus like when you go outside. Is there ever sort of like an indicator to you, company growth size, budget, the type of production this is being used for? Like how when do you decide like, no, we need to go outside and bring some of this stuff in versus let's be smart and leverage some internal people for this.
I mean, I think it's it could be all those things you just mentioned.
Mm.
I'm always usually when I come to someplace new, like I know there's going to be certain need for it to leverage internal talent and try to develop internal talent. So I'm always like on the lookout for people like you.
Yeah, it's always
When
an
I show up at
upside if you
Drift, I'm
can do
like,
that
oh,
in the way.
if this person can, and like leaning on my, you know, sort of background in entertainment, like I don't want to just bring somebody up in the company that's like, oh, I worked on this project on the product team, but I'm like completely stiff, totally, you
Deer in
know,
the
just doesn't.
headlights. Yeah.
Right. And that's doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm always looking for someone like you. When I saw you talking in meetings, I'm like, this guy, you know, he knows how to grab and hold attention. And that's really important. Plus, but you also can't just bring in a ringer from the outside that has no authentic connection to what's going on. Right. That's, I think, what's really key. I want someone that's going to be able to present on camera, engage, what I call keep the ball in the air. You know,
Yes.
the audience doesn't like, we say that people like train wrecks to see a train wreck happen. But I think when people are involved in this experience from an event perspective that we're talking about, like they don't want to see something go wrong. They don't
No.
want to see it
They desperately
dead.
don't want awkwardness, I think.
Oh no, because then they feel that too.
Ugh.
So I'm always looking for somebody that can keep the ball in the air, keep it moving, and be authentic, right? So it doesn't feel like, oh, we've just got somebody here who could go talk about anything, whatever we put in prompter, they're going to teleprompter, potentially they're going to be able to read. There are times when it makes sense, I think, at a certain level to say like, hey, we're going to do like a huge, big event thing, or we're going to do a big brand ad campaign. Maybe you do want a spokesperson. Maybe
Yeah.
you do want somebody that doesn't work inside the company. I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. So it's just really that deciding, you know, the right tool for the right job. Sometimes you want to leverage internal talent, and sometimes that could be from an acting standpoint. Sometimes it could be a low budget ad that you want to create. You want to use people as extras, or you want to have them involved. Other times you're going to want to go to actors. It might be because you have a short period of time. I just did a project for Apollo where we shot 3 30-second brand ads in one day in one location. You know, and I had to bring in actors because I had to know they could get through the script and not get nervous or get a slow start, and burn all this time, because time is definitely money on a production like that when you're renting a house and you have, you know, additional crew there to help you pull that off.
Hmm. Well, I love all of this, and I wanted to ask you though. So you're right. Usually, if you're a director of video like yourself and you have control over the production, you can make that smart call based on who do I need? Are they available? Can I afford them? Will they not freak out or whatever? But we started this conversation with one of the most in demand. We all know this in B2B is customer stories. Get that
Mhm.
customer on tape. But you just
Right.
said there, I mean, customer stories are gold, but getting customers to shine on camera, especially if
Mhm.
they're not naturals at that, is tricky.
Yeah.
So do you have any
It's
secrets to share
mhm.
for when you get on site with people like that, or they come on site to you, how you get them to kind of turn into
I
stars
mean,
for you?
first for starters, like I really like to ideally, I mean, we don't always get this, but I like to cast for it, you know?
Mm.
Like I'm like, we need to think about as we're like looking through the stories that we could tell, the customers we could connect with to tell the stories and have the impact. You know, I'm thinking about from a video perspective, not just like the raw, you know, data content that they can spew out. Um, And I want to cast for that. I want to see who they have, who they're planning on having on camera, and see if I'll like go and look and see if I've seen them do anything else in video work before. Of course, that doesn't always happen. I mean, I really just try to, and sometimes there's only so much you can do, but what I really try to do, and this happens even when just working with people internally too, not just with customers for customer stories or case studies or anything like that, is I just try to get them loose and get them comfortable and stop thinking about the camera. You know, one of the things I tell them all the time is when they're looking down this camera right here, like I think a lot of people's minds go to like this nebulous audience that might be out there. I'm like, pick one person that you know, that you work with, that's a family friend, that's a friend, family member, whoever it is, somebody that seems appropriate probably for the content. You're just talking to them. Just talk to them the way that you would talk to them. Don't think about the whole giant thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that puts people at ease. It gives them somebody to kind of imagine the conversation that they're having. That helps. A lot of times it's getting people to really just crank up what they're doing. I think a lot of people are kind of flat, kind of quiet, you know, and I'm like, hey, listen, now that we're settled in, let's just try one that feels like way bigger than you would ever go.
Yes.
It's going to feel uncomfortable for you, right? Like it's going to feel strange. It's going to feel odd. But what I know is that on the other end of that, the audience are probably going to be the one that they really connect with. And we'll do takes like that. And inevitably, when I go back, if it's somebody internal and I'm like, hey, here's one of the ones you did earlier and here's the one later, they always like the one that's like where they push themselves to go a little bit bigger.
But they need
because that's probably more engaging.
To give them a little bit of permission to do that. And that's one thing I like to do too, like even on these sort of productions or when I'm emceeing or facilitating like a panel or whatever, is to try to set that tone and to already like start it on a certain level with the question I've asked or my enthusiasm and like responding them to kind of get them to level up to where we think the audience wants them to be, right?
Right. And all these things like, right, like you using your hands to talk, like there's sometimes they'll get in here and they'll just be like, so tight and so stiff, you know, trying to get people to loosen up a little bit. And if they're like, or sometimes there'll be people will start to use their hands and then they'll like try to stop. And I'm like, it's okay. I mean, don't wave them in front of your face probably, but like, it's okay to do that, you know, and be engaging that way visually too. And that's being a director, is getting performances. You know, so it's like producer, director, technologist, camera operator, different tools, editor, creative director type of stuff too, right? Thinking about the whole vision of the way that the brand is going to be represented in video. But I think this part we're talking about now is a really challenging part. It's not easy sometimes to get the kind of performance you'd like out of somebody who's not accustomed to doing that on camera.
Well, that's why I really enjoy talking with you, because there is an entire world of school of thought around the video strategy. If you take some time, you talk to somebody who's been in the trenches like you have, and you realize it's not just one school of thought. We're going to do video, and how does one do video right? You're talking about 4 or 5 sub bits of the directing, the production aspect of it, the formatting of it, the distribution of it, and working with different talent. And I love that concept of casting, because I try to do the same thing too. If I'm trying to help a company come up with panelists, or we're going to be sort of like guest MCs or ambassadors within their company in the video content, is find somebody who's a natural, who's waiting to be a star, you know, and give them that chance. Is not always a good idea, but it feels great too when you pull that off.
Oh yeah, I think it's easy to look at, like, if you're looking at putting a panel together, thinking about like long form, short form, you know, events, all these different types of things, but specifically for events, panelists, hosts, MCs, like, just because a panelist looks good on paper, like they've done these things, they're talking about this thing, they have articles, media, whatever, they're writing about this kind of stuff. It's like, but how are they going to talk about that live and engage with other panelists on the stage, engage with the MC? That part's really important too.
When that's not their job all the time. They're a customer, they're a frontline employee or whatever it is, or an executive who normally runs other stuff. And now suddenly they have to be a certain way that they desperately want to be, and they want to fit in and be a member of this production that we've invited them to be a part of, but they're looking off stage and saying, am I doing this right? Is this where you want me to go? Like, they need someone to kind of pull them along and connect them to the audience a little bit.
Most people don't like public speaking. It's like one of the number one fears that people there. And then when you start putting together something where you're like, oh, we want somebody that's a specialist in this area to talk about this topic, like, you're really kind of like narrowing the pool and finding the right person. Because I think that really makes a big difference. I've seen and been a part of events where it's like, hey, we're gonna get this person, like, looks really good, going out and invite and all that, but like, how does it actually deliver? Because you have to deliver on that. I think otherwise setting up an event and not delivering is like just not going to work, obviously.
Oh man, that's something I was really proud that you and I came together on for a number of these. We did virtual and in-person events at Drift. Was we've got 3 or 4 people who are all very good at doing their thing and delivering their point of view and their message, but the audience is there watching all of it. And we told the audience it was going to come together, and by watching all 3 of those things, they were going to kind of get something that's the sum of greater than that, even though these 3 people have built their content, have usually delivered their content, their subject matter expertise in a silo. And now we need that to kind of flow, and we're going to need to pull a little bit out of them, prep them and steer them a little bit, but we might have to MC it and kind of stitch it together in between and remind people after they're done talking why what they just heard, even though it was different, is going to match up to what they're about to hear next, and how it's still going to fulfill the promise as to why they started the video, joined the event in the first place.
Yeah, and MC pulls everything together, I think. What we did with that, like at Drifts, several times over with you, MCing, like you have to be able to create that flow and kind of like hold the audience's hand and bring them along, right? Give them some context about what they just saw and how it fits into where we're going next. Help them draw conclusions, help them see all that thematically, and hit on the messaging that you're the reason why you're having the event to begin with. Like, don't just assume that they're going to get that. Let's just go ahead and tell them in an engaging way, which is what you did so well. I was so psyched when I ran into you, because I have had issues before where I'm like, they're like, yeah, this is your person that's going to be on camera for this, and it's like not a lot to work with.
Yeah.
So I was like, just really glad that you were such an extrovert and like willing to do that.
Thank you, man. And I tell you, I would not be here hosting this podcast, doing the business that I'm doing, if it wasn't for you discovering that and us working together on this, and you giving me some shots to be a part of some of these productions. And it had me realize, like, I really enjoy working with the creative side of this. And I like kind of being the bridge between the audience, the business, and the creative production of all of it. It was just awesome, man. I'm just so grateful for this.
No,
So
I used to tell people how, like, I was like, do you understand how hard it is what Nick's doing? And I'm like, if you don't, then I would just ask you, would you want to step into his place and do it?
right.
Again, nobody wants to do, it's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
It's a rush for those of us who have done it and want to continue to do it. So I think that's what we want to transition to, my friend, as we roll out here. Is obviously it's exciting to pursue video to some people. In the boardroom, it's exciting to think about the strategy. Certain people want to be the talent. Some people are excited to get their product video made, the customer stories made, a great opening sizzle reel type thing for the event. But there's pitfalls too. So what is one thing, if you were working with a company and they're eager about video, actually, it's the opposite of the scenario we've talked about before. Like, they're in. What's a common pitfall that you think a lot of companies maybe miss out on, they're not thinking about, that might cause them to, I don't know, dissipate that effort, that budget or whatever? Is there any sort of like gotchas you want to warn people about? Like, oh, you might be excited about video, doing some of the stuff we just talked about, but some things to look out for.
The biggest thing that I run into is just like, the piece of always wanting to do way more than we can, right? And everybody wanting everything and just not really understanding how much time some of this takes if you're going to do it well, right? And the whole thing is like, it is, setting ourselves up for success, right? With video, right? Leveraging that resource, having it have impact. We're going to have to make sure that we give certain things a certain amount of time. And I think if we were to try to like rush through way too many things, what's going to happen is we're just going to come up short on all of them, and they're not going to hit. And then everyone's going to kind of be like, why did we spend this time? We're not getting the results. Well, because we didn't set ourselves up for success, right? We have to be really smart about what projects we take on, to make sure we're going to get the kind of impact that we want and the results that we want. I think that's the biggest pitfall, is like thinking that like, hey, I hired Chad and now we've got 2 other people. Now we can do, although I think at Apollo, I just did a look back deck for the previous year. I think we produced about 350 to 375 videos in the year. It's just like making sure you manage, the resource properly. And I can't say yes to everything. I think that's one of the big problems, is that, companies just trying to do too much, or being like, hey, we want a YouTube channel because we need to be in the YouTube space. Like, let's just pick up a phone and blah, 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 blah. Like, you could do that. There's ways to do that, but like, you have to make sure that you're just being smart about how you leverage the resource and think about it, and not spread it so thin that everyone's set up to fail.
Yeah. What are some things that you look at, Chad, from a sort of engagement and output standpoint that lets you know that you're on a good track? Like you just talked about, you did a look back deck. What were some of the metrics that you started to see from a creative side? We also know about bottom line, how many deals, that's another department. But like when you think about, is this video resonating? Is this video getting out there? What are some stats that people can think about that you look as early indicators?
I mean, I think it depends on the channel, but of course I'm looking at impressions, but mainly views and engagement. I'm interested in engagement too, right? Like I want to know what percentage of a video did people watch, right? If we spend the time creating an 18-minute video or a 2.5-minute video or a 38-second video, I want to know what percentage did people watch, right? Because I'm thinking about like, wow, if we only had 68%, which by the way would be a pretty good engagement rate actually, watch this, then like, did we just waste our time that whole half into the video? Should we just cut it right there and that's it? Like, I don't know. You have to determine that. But I'm looking at views, I'm looking at engagement rate. When I'm looking at like, shares, I'm looking at comments, engagement, those types of engagement too, not just percentage watch. And in YouTube, we're also looking for growing subscribers, right? Like how many people do we have that watch some of our video content on YouTube and are like, you know what? I like this channel. I want to make sure I'm on top of what they have going on.
That's a big indicator
too.
in B2B for sure.
Yeah, they're buying in. So, we have like a really solid growth in that space right now at YouTube at Apollo. And that's something I look at a lot too.
You've done some amazing things, my friend, and I think you're an example worth following. And I know there's a lot of companies that look at what Drift did and now what Apollo's doing now as a leader and saying, we need to get a piece of that action. We need to be heading off in that direction. If you were sitting down today with somebody who said, we want to start heading that direction, Chad. We don't have a lot of budget. We understand we don't need a ton of budget. We don't have a lot of time. What are a couple of things we might be able to do? Like if you just had another SaaS company, they're a few years in, a couple hundred employees, they got a couple hundred clients, I don't know, but like, and they're willing to give it a shot. What might you advise a generic sort of company like that to, where might you say get started with corporate video or using video in the marketing and sales process or the branding process? Something that you feel safe, good place to start for most? Anything like that pop out?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do. I think the easiest thing to do that would make the most sense, I'd probably start with is like, hey, I mean, in some cases, maybe you don't even have a video team yet, but maybe there's some people internally that are like, obviously know how to use social media, right? Know how to use a phone.
The savviness of your staff.
I would lean into that. I would start with some thought leadership stuff. I would definitely start on social. I would start on low lift and I would probably start, especially like think about that social channel. Like you're not just going to go out there and do like, let me do like webinar type content right there. Like you have to like produce for the channel. So that's why I would lean into that social style with the people that you already have internal that are willing to do it and start building that way.
Pop it up smartphones, little light editing.
Of course you can do that. You can create really impactful video content without a big production lift. Like I love creating really polished stuff, but I also love being really scrappy and creating like really great stuff that's like just using the phone, just using this space right here where we are now. What story can we tell right here? I think thought leadership stuff too, right? Talk straight to the camera. Talk about what's going on in the space that you're involved with, your company's involved with. Get that out there. I would start there.
What do we know, right? What story can we tell right now? I love that, man.
You always can, there's always something to say,
yes.
Right? And it just doesn't have to be super fancy at all, right? It just has to be authentic and when I say good, just like real, authentic, and play to that channel. And again, people internally are going to know. They have their own social accounts. Find out who is on TikTok, on your team and is already like, whoa, you've done a bunch of videos that have like 75, 150,000 views. Like, something, what you're doing. Let's lean into that.
I love that we ended on that, folks, because that is exactly what Chad did with me, is that he said, this kid, Nick, likes to do this type of thing. I just consider myself a perpetual kid. I'm not a kid, obviously, but and you gave me a shot and I rose to the occasion, and people will do it because it's a cool thing for their career. It's a cool thing for them to try. And now I'm having my own business around helping people on the on camera side of their content and their experience. That's what you can get out of this. Future producers of tomorrow who are listening to Chad, if you give the talent a chance and say, yeah, no, it's okay. I'll provide the coverage. I'll provide the grounding of the editing, whatever you need to let yourself shine. Like, you got subject matter expertise. What story can you tell right now? What can
Yeah.
the customer tell us right now? And let's just get it out there. And I do want to underscore what you said about the authenticness is I think that's especially in an era where a lot of people, even YouTubers, are getting a lot of production value and editing and all this other stuff to gamify the algorithm and stuff. I do think there's a big audience crying out for, like, can someone just be real here? Can someone just tell me honestly what they're thinking, what's honestly going on over there? Because there's a surfeit of that. There's not enough of that going around, I think.
Definitely. I mean, I think, and then aside from that, like, and then if you're a company and you're like, okay, we're doing a little bit of that, what do we do next? Like, pick the right kind of project and like set out to just do these few things, whatever it is. If you want to do like top of funnel brand ads for cheap or medium or high budget, whatever, you can do that. I think if you have a software product, like obviously I would get into how-to stuff, and showing people how to use the product and getting it out there. And
it's funny how often people don't do that, right? They're like, they want to show you some
just make
flash and stuff like that. But as honestly, the biggest challenge to getting the ROI with the software is if the user doesn't think they'll be able to use it or enjoy using it, or they're afraid they're going to get stuck in a pitfall somewhere. Just show them. Just do it,
right.
man.
You have to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to too, if you're gonna have someone on camera, someone talking about it, like it helps to be someone that's good at doing that.
Yeah.
But those are like low lift things, I think, that are a way to get started, and then you build from there.
Well,
then the next thing you know, you're doing like, hey, let's do a product keynote with the CEO and, renting out the old San Francisco Mint, and you've got, all kinds of things going on and different crews and multi-cameras and creating motion graphics and doing all that kind of stuff, which I love to do too. But I think it can also be little things.
Well, and what you're describing was a project you worked on with Apollo that was very successful, with creating sort of a series with a lot of the thought leaders inside Apollo that taught people about how to sell well using the product. So,
yeah.
So I did want to close with that. Is there something that you have worked on, that you are working on, Chad, that the corporate video strategists of tomorrow should just take a look at, that you're shipping right now? Anything that they should keep an eye out for, search around for, that you put out recently?
I mean, I think some of the stuff that we've done in Apollo, that it's not like totally unique just in the world of video, but like we have been doing or continue to do these, high production value multicam shoots with, thought leaders that are basically like master classes, right? Everyone says like, oh, our master class, but the master class is just like me on Zoom doing a couple things. This was literally us saying like, let's do something of the quality of masterclass.com or close to it. And we found that customers out there through our academy offering, right? We have an Apollo Academy where we teach people how to use tools and around thought leadership, around sales in general, like techniques. That has been really impactful. People love that kind of content, are just so happy to consume it. And it's because it's great content, but it's also like high production value. And I think people aren't used to seeing that for free.
Yeah.
And we're giving it away for free. So that's kind of a special thing.
What's it called? It's the Apollo like sales masterclass, or what is it?
Well, right now it's under Apollo Academy, and these are a series of master classes. Then below that, we have Learn Apollo, which are remote productions with someone internally that we have that teaches you how to use the tools, and how to be better at sales. Because that's really all we're trying to do at Apollo through the tool and through the content and through video, is like give people the tools to be more successful with sales. That's it.
And video helps you walk that walk. It helps people see the human side and the emotional side of what you're trying to help the world do. It's just so.
Yeah. I mean, video's everywhere and you're competing with people's attention constantly. So that's the other part of it, is like, just make sure that the video content has impact, that people are going to want to watch it, right? It has to be good for them. It has to be a good use of their time. And people have short attention spans. So you also have to grab their attention and hold it. Just don't assume that they're going to be there watching the whole thing.
And to be there in multi formats. I've seen you do it. I'm excited to see you continue to do it, Chad. I appreciate you just sharing some things from the trenches. And I know you don't go on to programs like this and talk about yourself and talk about your work that much, because you're mostly about talking about your client, your companies and the customers and stuff like that. So I appreciate you sparing a moment and letting people a little bit backstage into how you think, because I think it's a mindset and a strategy that more B2B organizations need to have if they don't have a Chad Mann internally. I think they should. And so if somebody wanted to reach out to you just for advice or ideas, anything that they heard here, can they look you up on LinkedIn? Is that the best way to?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably is really good.
Yeah.
for sure.
Taking up on it, gang.
Yeah.
Chad has been super helpful to me, throughout my career. You're a person worth following, and the work that you and the team at Apollo are doing, I think, is really inspiring for what's possible. And just hope more people will check it out.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Great chatting with you and catching up as always. Love chatting with you, and being on camera with you is great.